What is up, people of the internet? It is me, Real American Politics, back in with a new video. And today, we are going to be discussing how pro or anti-Second Amendment is America truly, aka how pro-gun is America. Now, I did a similar video on this a couple weeks ago on the issue of abortion, but I decided, okay, we got abortion out of the way. What about guns? This is another social issue that has kind of faded off in relevancy in the past 2 or 3 years. It's kind of just slowly became a bit more irrelevant. Yes, Democrats talk about it half the time still, but you get the point that it's not as talked about as 2 years ago or something like that. But it's just weird because you had the Supreme Court rule down conceal gun laws across New York, but whatever. Point is, I want to discuss how pro-gun is each state. What do I mean by this? Obviously, you're taking in consideration some of the gun laws in each state. How easy it is to get a gun. On top of that, how pro-gun is the electorate. For example, how many people have guns? Now, I know in some states it's harder to get, but generally speaking, based on the demographics, the type of area type, how rural it is, etc. How pro-gun is it in that metric? So there's 3 measures, or I should say categories. Anti-gun, in-between, pro-gun. Anti-gun generally means a state has more restrictions and the electorate tends to be more anti-gun. In-between, you could make an argument either way. There is some gun restrictions, but at the same time, there is a lot of pro-gun people in this state. While pro-gun, very limited restrictions. There are, of course, some states with restrictions, but at the same time, large chunk of the population have guns or they support the Second Amendment. Now, before we continue with today's video, I hope you enjoy these type of videos. If you do, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the Twitter accounts in the description down below, and join the channel today. Guys, just for $3 a month, you can join Real American Politics. That's a phenomenal deal, as it helps support the daily content we all know and love. You love the daily content? This is the best way to support the daily content. So I hope you join today. Alright, everybody. Let's get in today's video. How pro-gun is America truly? So let us start with the great state of Alaska and work our way towards the mainland. I would start with Alaska. Pro-gun. Do I gotta say much? It's Alaska. Give me a break. Don't say, oh, they voted for a Democrat. Guys, it has I believe it has like a 70% gun ownership rate. It's yeah. Plus it has very lax gun laws. So yeah, I think the state as a whole is fairly pro-gun. Now we have Hawaii. Not going to spend much time here. There's not much to say here. It's Hawaii. Not really the most conservative place in the world in the first place. Not much to say here. California. There are aspects of it, in particular, in Northern California, I would say are, generally speaking, a bit more pro-gun than not in Northern California. Outside of that, the state is vehemently anti-gun, had some of the strictest gun laws in the country. I don't think there's much thing to be said here about California. It's a no-brainer. Now we have Oregon. And surprisingly, it didn't have the worst gun laws in the world. On top of that, it had a gun ownership rate of 50.8%. I don't think there's much to be said here. When you have both lax gun laws and a high gun ownership rate, generally speaking of lax gun laws, I think Oregon, you could say, is in between a pro-gun and anti-gun. Now, Washington. It had some lax laws in place. The issue is I don't think it really reaches that threshold of being, a super duper pro-gun state. It's not majority gun ownership. It's not 50%. gun ownership. Plus, you don't really think of Washington when you think of being pro-gun. Now, there are aspects of it that are similar to Oregon, but I don't think I got to say much. It is Washington, which fascinating that Oregon would be more pro-gun, but kind of makes sense. Oregon has a large rural population, so I guess it makes some sense when you think at it that way, but I think overall Oregon has in between and Washington's anti-gun. Nevada, a fairly libertarian state, also a state that I believe has some lax gun laws on top of having a decent share of the population, gun ownership rate at least. 47% gun ownership. I think overall, you think of Nevada, fairly rural population, and there are aspects of there that you could say are anti-gun. I would say overall it is a in-between state. Some aspects are pro-gun, some aspects not so much. Now we get to states that I don't think I gotta say much about. We're just gonna skip these because there's not much to be said here. These gun ownership rates in these states is like 60-70% each. And they had some of the most lax gun laws in the country. I'm not going to say much. When you think of the Great Plains, you think of gun ownership, gun-loving Americans. We're just going to put that old pro-gun. Not much be said here. I'm also putting Arizona in this. It had a fairly high population of gun ownership rate. It had a ownership rate of around, if I had to guess, it was probably around 49% or 48%, plus fairly lax laws overall, which, considering the fact they voted for a Democrat governor and a Democrat senator by 4, kind of bizarre to think that there are aspects of it that are fairly pro-gun. You just look at the ownership rate and the laws on the book. It's just bizarre that it's an anti-gun Democrat and he was able to win by 4 to 5 points. But still, I would say Arizona overall is a pro-gun state more than not. Now, Colorado has a good gun ownership rate. It has a rate around 45-46%, plus it has some lax laws. And when you think of Colorado, there are a lot of gun owners overall in the state. So I would put it as an in-between state. Not really pro-gun, but not really anti-gun either. And actually a similar deal with New Mexico, which has very similar laws and surprisingly a higher gun ownership rate than Colorado, which shocked me. I would have never thought in a million years the gun ownership rate in New Mexico would be higher than in Colorado, but it is. So I think both those states, they're in between. Now, Oklahoma, pro-gun. Texas. I'm not saying much, guys. It's Texas. What's the biggest meme about Texas? Guns. And, of course, God and oil. But outside of that, it's guns. This is a God, oil, and gun state. Not much be said with Texas. And similar deal with most of the South. There's really not much be said here. South Carolina did have some more strict gun laws, but it still had a decent enough gun ownership rate where, yeah, you would probably put it into that pro-gun state. Same thing with Louisiana. Missouri, Kentucky, West Virginia. Some of these states I'm not even going to discuss. Iowa. It voted for a pro-gun amendment by 30 points, when the rest of the ticket won by 15-20. Yeah, I think it's a pro-gun state. Now, my beautiful state of Wisconsin, I would say, is a pro-gun state. Now, it did not allow permitless carry just yet, but even then, the gun ownership rate is through the roof, plus it's Wisconsin. Go to northern rural Wisconsin. Basically, everybody has a gun. And everybody supports the Second Amendment in the state of Wisconsin, outside of Madison, parts of Milwaukee. The rest of the state, everybody basically supports guns. There's really not many aspects of it that are anti-gun. Now, Minnesota. I would put Minnesota into that in-between category. There are a lot of voters that are pro-gun. It just had laws in the book that weren't as favorable to guns as other states. Plus, the gun ownership rate isn't as high as states like Wisconsin. So I would put it in between. Aspects of it are pro-gun, some aspects not so much. Now, Illinois, anti-gun. There are a lot of southern voters in the state of Illinois that are pro-gun. Outside of that, it's had some of the most strict gun laws on the book, never had high gun ownership rate, which, yes, it played a part with the gun laws, but still, I would put Illinois into that anti-gun category. Now, Michigan. We're going to see how pro-gun Michigan is after the Democrats are practically going to ban most guns in the state, or at least try to. Now, I would say it's in between now. For now, you could make the arguments pro-gun, but we just want to see what the backlash is with the anti-gun measures about to pass in the state of Michigan. We just got to see what happens. If nothing happens, you could move it into in-between, aka keep it there, or move it to pro-gun if there is a serious response to the dictatorial gun laws about to be passed in the state of Michigan. Now, I would put Ohio in that pro-gun state. Pennsylvania I would put in between. Similar deal to Michigan. It's a tough one to tell. I don't know what those northeastern PA voters are. I really cannot tell, but I think the best option here is in between. I think there are pro-gun aspects of it. We just got to see what happens. North Carolina, I would say, is pro-gun. Florida, 5 years ago, no. Now, with the amount of people moving to Florida that are gun-loving Americans, I would put in the pro-gun state. Georgia, fairly high gun ownership rate, very lax laws in the book. I think it's a perfect recipe to be a pro-gun state. Now, it's moving left. I'm not denying that. But I would say overall, it is a pro-gun state through and through. Now, Virginia. This may be a hot take. Or is it? I don't know. But this state has a higher gun ownership rate than Pennsylvania, Michigan, and other states. And at the same time, it has at least had very similar laws than those states. So I think it's in between. I think there are a lot of aspects of Virginia that are pro-gun. I mean, we saw what happened when they tried to ban guns. You had sanctuary counties pop up everywhere. Even in Fairfax, or Loudoun County, I think, became a pro-Second Amendment state. Now, how much of that was just sheriffs being sheriffs, or how many of that was voters, being sick of the gun laws? I'm just going to put it in between for now. You can debate all you want in the comments down below. I think it's in between, but more pro-gun than states like PA or Michigan. That may sound crazy, but that's how I think it is for those states. Now, these states, I'm not going to say much. I really do not think much needs to be said about these northeastern states whatsoever. Now we get to the part of the video that is bizarre. Like, absolutely bizarre. This makes absolutely no sense. Maine has virtually no laws on guns whatsoever. Had a very high gun ownership rate. And when there was multiple Second Amendment referendums on the ballot, they all failed miserably. Maine is a pro-gun state. There's a lot of rural voters, and it makes sense. The gun ownership rate, I believe, in the state of Maine is something like, 55%. I could be off by a couple points here and there, are 47, 48%. Whatever. Point is, that's pretty high for the Northeast. But somehow, in some bizarre twist of fate, Vermont is pro-gun. Look, you have Bernie Sanders there, but they're one of the first states to be a no-permit gun state. One of the first to be that. They had ridiculous gun ownership to this day. It's 51%. It's like, holy crap! When you think Vermont, you think the strictest gun laws in America. No, it really ain't. And New Hampshire I would put into that pro-gun category. And that, folks, is what I would consider to be how pro-gun is America. There's, of course, many states that are anti-gun. There's 8 states that I would say you could make an argument about each way. As for the rest of the country, states like Wisconsin, you could say maybe in between, even if you take that out. The rest of these states are virtually undisputed. They are pro-gun. I mean, even Vermont is pro-gun. Now, that has to do with how rural it is, plus Vermont politics, like other states like Alaska, sometimes not making any sense. But these are the pro-gun states, around 30 to 31. You can debate all you want in the comments down below. This is just my opinion based on the gun ownership rates, the laws in the book, etc. Anyways, folks, thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, smash the like button down below, subscribe, share with your friends, hit that little bell, follow the Twitter account in the description down below, and join the channel today. Thank you so much for watching. We'll see you guys in the next video. Godspeed to all of you.